Hi, Jessica. Oh, technology,
Welcome.
hey?
Yes, yes. So this is Niche Conversations, our third episode of season 3, and I am Jessica DeWitt. I'm one of the editors here at the Network in Canadian History and Environment, and today I am joined by Tracey Benson. Do you want to tell us more about yourself?
Yeah, thanks very much for inviting me along, Jessica. Just before I introduce myself, I just would like to acknowledge that I'm coming to you from the unceded lands of the Gubbi Gubbi people on Nyaran or Bribie Island, which is the traditional place of the Jundaburi tribe. So, and just wanting to acknowledge all people in the audience who might be from First Nations cultures. And
Mm-hmm.
it's really important for me to do that because that's part of, I guess, my feeling into the waters, because I come from a migrant background. So I've come to this continent from across the water. Well, not me personally, but my ancestors did. A little bit about me. I'm based in southeast Queensland in Australia. So Yarran is the traditional name for Bribie Island. It means crab, and it also means hunting place. So it's and there's a lot of crabs on the beach. I'm an artist. I play with different disciplines. I love collaborating with other artists and nature. And yeah, so, and I like organising ways to bring people together to connect through the themes of water in particular, but more elemental themes of connectivity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, so in September, early September-ish, we published your piece, Learning Lessons from the One Water, which was a part of our water pedagogies series. So that's what we're going to
Mhm.
be chatting about today. So I thought we'd start off by talking about what is the concept of the one water.
Mm. Well, I guess in the way that it evolved for me, it came through work that I'd been doing with Intercreate, which is based in Aotearoa, New Zealand, and it's an interdisciplinary trust, arts trust. And about 6 years ago, I co-organised a workshop which we called From the Mountains to the Sea, and the theme was why and energy. And around the same time, myself and some of my collaborators in this group, we started to do water ceremonies. So we actually would try to, at the same time on a full moon in particular, we would go down and to our watershed and do a very sort of loose ceremony, usually using Dr. Moto's prayer of water, I love you, water, I respect you, water, um, something else. Anyway, there's three things. There's three things. But anyway, and the conversations that sort of came out of that was this idea that through water we're all connected. Like we're connected across geographies. The water, at that point I was living in Canberra, which is at the top of the catchment of the Murrumbidgee River, which flows into the Murray-Darling Basin, which is the largest water system in Australia. And eventually that water flows to the sea. And also some of the people who I'd been working with were First Nations people whose traditional lands were along this river system. And they talk about the water being a body and the river system being a body. And for me, there was just this theme of connectivity across water, and also our own human bodies have 70% water. So there was a whole bunch of different thinking about one water. Also our DNA, we carry in our DNA the water of where we're born. So there's a lot of scientific things that are going on in this concept of the one water, but at a real sort of, I guess, cosmos level, it's the idea that we're all connected, and through water, this life-giving element, we're all one and we're all part of the one water.
Mm.
So yeah, so that's sort of where the concepts come from, and it's just sort of been evolving since then, in different ways. Yeah.
Cool. I did not know that we had the DNA, like the water that from where we were born in our DNA. That's fascinating. That's really beautiful. I love that. And this concept really resonates with me. I'm always thinking of ways to connectivity is just one of my passions, just like ways of thinking about it and also concrete ways of showing it. And this kind of one
Mm,
water goes both ways, I think. Um,
mm,
yeah, I really think it's quite beautiful. And I loved reading about it in your post. So another thing that you talk about in this piece
mm,
is water as a collaborator. So I wondered if you
mm,
could talk a bit about what do you mean when you refer to water as a collaborator?
mm. Well, I guess in a very personal way through my creative practice, water collaborates. The form
Mm-hmm.
of water, I document, I go into the water. Recently, I've been producing some eco dyed works, which also has some video projection onto them. I actually use flood water that I'd collected when we had floods as the base for creating the eco dyes.
Mm-hmm.
So water was part of that, and also the way that water flows for me is reminds me of how I need to work in life. Like I quite love how Bruce Lee. I mean, it's an old quote, but he talks about being like water. And water, I talk a lot too in that piece about water as a teacher, and for me, it's a collaborator, because
Mm-hmm.
it's guiding how my work will evolve. It's guiding the connections between uh, humans, people, and non-humans, the more than human realm, and also it takes many forms. It teaches us, to be adaptable and resilient. Like the drops of water can wear away a stone. Um, Frozen water is like, there's strength in remaining still sometimes. So I guess when I say collaborator, I sort of love the idea of it having an active voice as well. That quite often in my work, there's a lot of sound that is just the sound of water.
Mm-hmm.
So water has a voice, and also too that it in many ways connects to the amazing work that's been done in recent years around giving legal personhood to rivers. For example, the Whanganui River in New Zealand, Aotearoa, New Zealand. And there's another beautiful article that I read with Anne Polina and who lives in Western Australia in the Pilbara region. She's an elder there, and she has as a co-author on an article the Warra or the Fitzroy River. So I'm really sort of connect and resonate with the way that water is becoming an active voice in the way we're seeing the world. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and our observations as humans also, can teach us many things. So, and I think I reference in that article, like First Nations people have this direct correlation, like I am the river and the river is me, so it ties to the idea that we are water, and the health of the river system and ecosystems will reflect in our health as beings that need that river system to be healthy, for us to be healthy and survive well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a number of things rolling through my head. I recently read a chapter on material ecology, which
Mm,
is a fancy way of kind of saying that everything has agency. The rocks have
mm,
agency, the trees have agency, water has agency, like
mm,
every, yeah. Uh, and but as you're talking and talking about indigenous connections and
mm,
it makes me think about how we may call this material ecology, but really like that's really a Western thing, like kind of
mm,
slapping a label onto a way of thinking about the world that um, other cultures already have, and kind of making it fancy. So I love the way
Yeah.
that you are learning from and bringing in Indigenous thought, and yeah, I think that's so important to acknowledge. Uh, yeah, so I thought we would wrap up today by you touch upon it in the piece very quickly, your ongoing
Mm.
project, Words for Water, and I just wanted to learn more about it. So could you tell us more about
Mm.
the project?
Yeah, I will, but I'd just like to respond to your comment quickly, and I think that this is something that you've picked up on that's really important. The First Nations people have held this knowledge, for thousands and thousands of years. And,
Mhm.
in our Western frameworks, we're trying to, like, I love what you're saying, slap a label on it, because it's a way that we can contain it in an understanding. And of course, it's beyond that sort of limitation as well. So, I love that you picked up on that, and definitely, I know from working with Māori people in Aotearoa, New Zealand, everything has sentience,
Yeah.
and I think that would resonate with other First Nation cultures as well. So, yeah, so that was a response.
Yeah.
Words for Water. It actually came about around 10 years ago. And it actually, at the time, I was working with a First Nations community along the Murray River water system, the Yorta Yorta community. And it was actually, I just had gone this day to the river, and they have paddle steamers. This place, Uchuka, used to be a really rich place for trade. So before they started putting weirs and locks into the Murray River, like for thousands of years before it, it was a waterway that was used for trade. Um, and so this paddle steamer was like a tourist thing. And anyway, what I observed was how dire the state of the river was. And I felt really affected by that. And I knew that I had set up a little group in Facebook that there were a lot of different cultural groups from all over the place. And I just asked a simple question. I said, "What's your word for water?" And I wasn't really expecting much to happen, but what happened was this real response. And by the end of like 2 or 3 days, I had 34 different languages and words for water. So that really, for me, made me realise that there's something in this that was really worth exploring. So how it's evolved, it started very simply as a small collaboration. My son creates music, so he created a soundtrack. I did screenshots mapping the Murray River from the source to the mouth. And then since then, it's just iterated, and I've invited other people to collaborate on works as it's evolved. And it's still evolving, and I think in many ways it's sort of my project, but I see myself as just a facilitator of bringing other people together and building different voices into the project. And it's sort of also led to other sort of, I guess, projects, which is like Meeting of the Waters, which happened last year online.
Mhm.
And that was a real bringing together of a lot of traditional custodians and artists and thinkers and scientists on the theme of water. And I just think too, it's evolving in the way I think about it too, because water has its own language. So I was ascribing all of these different language words to it, but coming back to the concept of the one water, it's like water has its own language and its own voice, and different waters have their own resonance. So it's a project that keeps giving. And certainly now that I'm actually living very close to where I was born, I can see where I was born across the bay. And there's 3 rivers that run into the bay. So I'm surrounded by water on a very small island right now, and I can see that this project is going to be going for quite a while yet. But yeah, that's a short summary. I've had, as I mentioned, many collaborators. It's also been thematic in terms of where the work has been developed. So there's been a piece that was about Aotearoa why, another piece I did was called Mary River, and that piece actually turned into an offshoot of the project called Waters of the Past, because, and that ties into the DNA piece, because Mary was my grandmother's name, and I started to explore water in relationship to ancestry and journeying, and more of a personal story. So that project sort of ties in, but it's got its own life as well. So yeah, so it's a lot of things, and it's a small thing, and it's a way of connecting for me. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Awesome. I explored your website, your project website a little bit, but I want to do some more. And I'll post the
Mm.
link to the project website in our stories after this. People can check it out. Yeah, I highly recommend everyone check out Tracey's piece and check out the entire water pedagogy series, which was fantastic.
Mm.
Very exciting. And yeah, thank you for joining me today, Tracey.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jessica.
Yeah, take care.
Take care. Bye, everyone.